This is a photo presentation of my wife and I coming to Krishna consciousness. We're going to go back in time to 1970, the summer of 1970. I was a photographer going to photography school. My wife also was a photographer in the same school. We were boyfriend, girlfriend. Flooding boyfriend, girlfriend. We were both in the same school, studying photography. I got an assignment to cover the Hare Krishna movement, Hare Krishna temple in Manhattan, New York. That's my introduction to Krishna consciousness. So I took the photographs and she wrote the article. This is the first Aarti ceremony we were taken to. When I came in front of the deities, I had a realization that this is my eternal occupation to worship the Lord. This Lord Jagannath Subhadra Holiday. So I was very attracted right from the beginning to Krishna consciousness. So that article was published in Asia magazine and went to 9 countries in Southeast Asia with a circulation of 630,000. So it came time for me to do my master's thesis in photography. So I decided, because I was attracted to Krishna consciousness, let me go to India and meet Prabhupada. So Prabhupada had just started his World Sankirtan tour. He started in India in September 1970. And I met him in December 1970. So when the devotees arrived in India, people were thrilled. Here come Western Vaishnavas following our own tradition. Amazing. Because for hundreds of years, they were under foreign subjugation trying to suppress the Vedic culture. But that can never be suppressed. It will always be there. It's eternal knowledge, actually. So these pictures are taken from little movie frames. You can make still pictures from movie frames. We're restoring all the films of Prabhupada now, 47 hours. In 47 hours, there's 4,060,800 little pictures at 24 frames a second. So we have a wealth of still pictures we can work with after the restoration is complete. But still, it's pretty good from a very small, tiny movie frame. This picture illustrates the prediction of Bhaktivinoda Thakur that people from all different races and religions will unite under the banner of Harinam. So Prabhupada was very enlivened to be back in India with his disciples. And his disciples were also very enthusiastic. The first time they had been to India. So Prabhupada organized programs in all the major cities in India. They traveled by train to different places. Each place they would stop, even for 10 or 15 minutes, the devotees would jump off the train onto the platform and have Harinam Sankirtan. So whenever something unusual happens in India, hundreds of people immediately gather. So very quickly word spread throughout India that Western Vaishnavas had come back. And Prabhupada was extremely successful. They were very proud of Prabhupada. So this is where I met Prabhupada in Surat, Gujarat. I just showed up. I didn't have an invitation. I just knocked on the door. So this is a changing bodies exhibit. Hare Krishna. Yes. different body of me. So anyway, it was a photographer's dream going to India, because in New York City, there's Harinam, but wasn't very favorably received. In India, they were received like demigods, devotees. The second night, these are black and white pictures taken for my master's thesis. I was shooting black and white pictures. The color pictures are taken from little movie frames shot by devotees. The second night, huge engagement to see all the people. The street closed, everyone turned out, the whole town turned out. Every day there was Harinam Sankirtan throughout different parts of the city. The newspaper would print the routes of the city, of the Harinam party. Each morning the newspaper, so wherever the Harinam party was, they would decorate the streets and receive the devotees very wonderfully. This is Manu Swami getting blessed. This is Malati Devi. You can see everyone came out during the Harinam party. Prabhupada would take his morning walk by the river. I visited this place, this particular park, some years ago. It's completely built up on both sides of the river. Surat is a very big city now. And Duralal Prabhu in the back leading the Boy Scouts in Harinam. You can see that little camera on his wrist. That's a movie camera. So in this particular lecture, Prabhupada was very animated. I took many, many photographs. It's Nanda Kumar Prabhu, his servant for many years. This is Mangal Arti in Prabhupada's room. Every morning we would assemble. The room was very, very small, but it was extremely intense and devotional. And Yamuna Devi leading the kirtan. Prabhupada would often ask her to lead the kirtan. Of course, she sings every day in the morning when the deity is open. And Prabhupada was tireless. There would be 3 and 4 engagements per day. Continuous preaching. We could hardly keep up with him. We were young. We were in our 20s. So the man in the Gandhi cap, not being pranams to Prabhupada, but the person next to him, he was our host, Mr. Jariwala. He had a 3-story house. He was a banker, very devoted man. When we were leaving, he paid obeisances to all of us and asked forgiveness for any offenses. We didn't commit any offenses. I mean, we did commit offenses. He didn't. We were young and very immature and not knowledgeable about the Indian culture. So anyway, and then he was crying when we were leaving. And Prabhupada turned to us and he said, "This is a Vaishnava, humble and with a soft heart." So the next stop was Allahabad, Kumbh Mela, 1971, in January. Very, very cold. This is where millions of people gathered over a 30-day period. It's the biggest festival in the world, Kumbh Mela. So Prabhupada had us do 3 things at Kumbh Mela. One was Harinam Sankirtan every day, and also prasadam distribution and deity worship. Some of the faces you may recognize. The person on Prabhupada's left in the back with the blanket on his head is Giridhar Das Brahmachari, now Giridhar Swami. Do you recognize him? This little Saraswati on her father's shoulders. Prabhupada said she was a great preacher because she would tell everyone to surrender to Krishna. And Prabhupada stayed with us. He could have stayed in the Gaudiya Math where he served for many years. He could have stayed with friends or in a hotel, but he always preferred to stay with his disciples, even though the conditions were very, very cold and rudimentary. And one day Prabhupada took us to the Gaudiya Math temple. These are the deities, this is the Gaudiya Math, Sri Rupa Gaudiya Math. These are the deities. And then Prabhupada took us to Benares, Varanasi. This was the celebration of the time that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met Rupa Goswami. Prabhupada was greeted royally wherever he went. He was India's national hero. He was drawn through the streets in this procession in a carriage with white horses. You can see Jayapataka Swami on the lower left in the parade, and Dinanath Prabhu in the upper left. He played mridanga, an extra kirtaniya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki. This is Prabhupada wearing his Western style shirt. When Mataji made this shirt for Prabhupada, she was thinking, what style should I make? So she was thinking that Prabhupada's a cowboy, I'll just make Western style. So again, these are taken from little tiny movie frames. The quality will be even better once we have a restoration project finished. This is Cross Maidan. This is one of the big major city programs that Prabhupada had in the heart of Mumbai, downtown Mumbai. Thousands and thousands of people would come every day. We had exhibits, photographs of temples around the world. So daily people would come, and there'd be morning and evening lectures. And this is the time that Prabhupada called that Western sadhu from the very back of the audience to come on stage and sit with him. Who was that? Who did Prabhupada call on stage? Yes, His Holiness Radhanath Swami, who was then a sadhu who had come out of the Himalayas to extend his visa. That's where he met Prabhupada. Today, Radhanath Swami is one of the biggest preachers in the movement. Actually, two others came from that program. His Holiness Lokanath Swami, met Prabhupada then, and also a devotee named Dadi Harta Prabhu. Dadi Harta Prabhu from Canada. So Dadi Harta Prabhu was listening to Prabhupada speak, but he couldn't really understand because of the accent. So he said one thing came through. He said, he said one thing came through that he could understand, that was surrender. So eventually he did surrender. On the last night of the 8-day condo, actually it was 10 days, there was a marriage ceremony on stage. The groom was from Sweden and the bride from Australia. So when Prabhupada spoke to the audience, he said, "This is the real United Nations." And everyone cheered. Haribo. This is Subal Swami doing the fire sacrifice for the marriage. And in the upper left corner, you see that Western sadhu with long hair. A little difficult to see, but you see him. That's Radhanath Swami. So, Jean was back in America thinking, what happened to John? So I invited her to come to India after 2 months traveling with the party. And she brought a book she published. And when she met Prabhupada, she showed Prabhupada that book. He was very interested in the printing quality because Prabhupada was into publishing and printing his books. So Jean wanted to do a photo essay, another project, on a quaint Indian village untouched by Western technology. So we asked Prabhupada where to go. We didn't know where to go. So Prabhupada said, wherever you go, you'll get your camera stolen and they will cheat you. But then he said, best you go to Vrindavan. So before going to Vrindavan, we wandered around Mumbai taking our art photographs. This yogi was outside the cross Maidan, but everybody was inside the Pandava program. So this is, before we went to Vrindavan, we went to Nepal. This is Jane taking a photograph. It was a very beautiful time of year. The summer of 1971. And I brought one book with me, the Bhagavad Gita as it is. And Jane read that book. This is the cabin we stayed in, deserted cabin. Jane read that book, and that was the first time she was thinking that maybe I'm something other than the body. Maybe I'm the soul. So that planted a seed in her heart. We came back down to Vrindavan, and Jean liked to sit in the temples photographing the widows chanting Hare Krishna. What? Nobody was taking the photographs. This was something called a time lapse. You could set it so it takes its own picture. There was nobody there. So we went around Vrindavan taking pictures. Then we got an invitation to go to Kolkata, to produce a Vyasa Puja book for Prabhupada. Vyasa Puja is Prabhupada's appearance day, birthday. So we went to Calcutta. This is the Calcutta temple. So this is 10 months later after I met Prabhupada. So I took Diksha initiation at this time. This is October 1971. Jean also came, but she was not so ready. She was attracted, but not enough to take initiation at that time. And then Prabhupada took us to Delhi, where he was greeted by the dignitaries. There's the mayor of Delhi on the left, Hans Gupta. And these are the beautiful deities that were installed at that time. This is Radha Gokulananda. These deities are now at the Bhaktivedanta Manor in London. And Jean is now the president. Vishaka Devi, my ex-girlfriend, is now the president of Bhaktivedanta Manor. So from atheist to theist to president. And then Prabhupada took us to Vrindavan, where Krishna grew up, the land of Krishna. And there we were married, and Jean took Diksha at that time. So we only have one photo of our marriage. One picture. I compare it to our daughter's weddings, with hundreds of photographs and video and complete coverage. We were the only photographers, so one devotee borrowed our camera and took this one picture. Prabhupada's actually on the asan on the left. Unfortunately, you don't see him. And we started traveling with Prabhupada, taking photos. Prabhupada gave us a tour of Vrindavan, all the holy places. And this is where Mother Yasoda saw the universe in Krishna's mouth. Prabhupada was describing him. His eyes are everything. And then Prabhupada joined us for swimming in the Yadubara. Prabhupada's godbrother, Dr. O.B.L. Kapoor. I think his name is Adikesha, initiated name Adikesha, do you know? Adikeshava? Do you know his initiated name, Dr. Kapoor? Anyone? We went to all the holy places in Vrindavan, including the Parshana, place of Srimati Radharani. And then Prabhupada took us to Jaipur. Again, Prabhupada was greeted with a big procession through the city streets. You can't imagine the pride that the Indian people have for Prabhupada. They're so proud of him. And now today, the movement is spreading all over India. So many temples coming up. In those early days, Prabhupada encouraged the Indian people to take the Krishna consciousness, become Krishna conscious, and spread it all over the world. And today it's happening in a very, very big way. So this is Prabhupada in Juhu. This is when there was no temple there, just a very small temple. We all know the difficulty that Prabhupada had in acquiring the land in Juhu. It was a big fight. Basically, the owner of the land sold it to us and then tried to take it back. by legal manipulation. But you don't do that to a Vaishnava. That's dangerous. So this is the groundbreaking ceremony for the new temple. Prabhupada was very happy. And then after 2.5 years serving Prabhupada in Juhu, Vishaka Devi and I got a letter from Karanda Prabhu at the BBT, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. He was asking us to come back to America to make a movie, because there was no films on Iskcon at that time. He asked Prabhupada his idea. Did he like the idea? He did, very much. He actually funded our first film called The Hare Krishna People. He gave us $16,000 on this book fund. So because Prabhupada liked the idea and funded the film, we could understand he knew the value of media. So back then people were mad after movies. Today they're even more mad after movies. This is the camera I used. We bought equipment from them with money. Very big and bulky compared to what we have today. I wish I had an iPhone 15 Pro. So the camera is actually covered by a thick quilted material to keep it quiet. It wouldn't make too much noise. And this is the tape recorder that Vishaka Devi used for the audio. The video and the audio were separate for professional films. And this is the editing system we used, hand cranked. We could never wind at the right speed, 24 frames a second, so there's a lot of guesswork in making it. So you can see a credit there under the narration, Howard Wheeler. Howard Wheeler is Hayagriva Prabhu. If you get a chance to read his books, please do. He's a wonderful writer. We tried to cover all aspects of the movement at that time. And this is the BBT warehouse in Los Angeles. This is only 6 or 7 years after Prabhupada started the movement. It's a huge operation going. Thousands of books printed and sent out all over the world. Devotees operating with forklifts. Marriage ceremony. Prabhupada being greeted by the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, India. This is one scene in the movie where cows are running down the hill in slow motion. When Prabhupada saw this, he said, "The cows are floating, can you fix it?" Floating cows. So we told Prabhupada, no, this is a special effect, Prabhupada. It's called slow motion. He'd never seen slow motion. Then he said, then it was all right. This is the last scene in the movie, Prabhupada dancing in the Bhaktivedanta manner.
Can I get some water? Water?
So my father was very sympathetic. He bought us this big editing table and also a new camera. So we're going through the 4 films that Prabhupada saw. Prabhupada actually commissioned this film, Brilliant as the Sun. He wanted something to show his godbrothers in Mayapur. He was doing the work of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, his guru, and printing and distributing books all over the world. So he made this film following one verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, all the way from Prabhupada speaking it to it being typed up and produced. This is the verse we followed all the way through the book production process. This Bhagavat Purana is as brilliant as the sun. And it is arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. This is the book production building in Los Angeles. As each step was finished, it would be checked off on this board.
Okay.
This is the devotee lady who would type the manuscript. This is Archita Prabhu, who would put that tape in the machine for printing out the text. Archita Prabhu is still working at the BBT 50 years later. Very steady. And then the paintings would be photographed. We followed one painting all the way from artist conception to completion. You know, when Prabhupada first had a few devotees come to him, he asked, are there any painters? And there was one, Jadurani Mataji, and she started painting very crude paintings in the beginning. She became very, very expert just by practice and enthusiasm. So the photograph would be taken and then resized for the cover. Again, this is all very time-consuming, complicated, tedious work. Today, the publish could be done very quickly using computers, and also editing on video. And then finally, the book is printed and shipped out all over the world. So we included in the movie reviews by famous professors from different famous universities, Princeton, Yale, Harvard. And then finally the book itself is being distributed on the streets of Los Angeles. This is Gopavindapal Prabhu distributing the book, very famous distributor in the 70s and 80s. I was across the street with a camera, and there we both hear them speaking to each other. So we took this film to India. We took something called a Fairchild projector, which is a businessman's briefcase. It just folds up. In 30 seconds, you can unfold it and show the movie. So Prabhupada liked that film very much. He showed it to many, many people. And then Prabhupada was very fond of his New Vrindavan farm community. And the third film that Prabhupada saw was called The Spiritual Frontier. This is a film on the first rural farm community in Iskcon. So this is a bit of a trick shot. I put the camera on the ground, and the horses ran over it. And I put it on the ground again, and they went reverse direction. It was a very beautiful time of year, summer of 1973. lots of crops being grown by devotees. Prabhupada wanted self-sufficient communities, not to have to depend on others, but to live simply and study the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, chant Hare Krishna, and be happy. And in the end, go back home, back to Godhead. Prabhupada was very proud of the cows in River Milk. Some of them would give up to 40 liters of milk per day. 40 liters milk per day. Each cow. Some of them. Prabhupada explained because the cows are happy. They know they're not going to be slaughtered. So they'll get more milk. If a person is happy in their work, they're more productive. Makes sense. Sometimes visitors would get a dose of milk. I have a piece of glass over the camera. This is a calf being born. When Prabhupada saw these puris being cooked, he leaned out of his yasasana and he said, "I want one." This is the Prabhupada's palace being built, all by devotees. Devotees learned all these crafts themselves. Did everything themselves. This is called Prabhupada's Palace of Gold. This is the palace today. If you get a chance to visit, please do. It's in West Virginia, USA. Prabhupada study. And these are the deities back in 1973. Sri Sri Radha Vrindavan Chandra. This is the last shot in the film. I'm in a helicopter. I wish I had a drone. Not only was it expensive, but a little dangerous. So the last film that Prabhupada saw was called Spark of Life. This was actually requested by the Bhaktivedanta Institute, the scientific branch of Iskcon. And they wanted a film to defeat the materialist argument that life comes from matter. It's a combination of material elements. So we thought if we tried to defeat their current arguments, those arguments would change. Because their arguments today are different from what they were then. So we decided to base our film on the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, which doesn't change. That's eternal. So the film is a conversation, it's a dramatic film, between two students. The student on the right is studying biology and learning how life comes from matter. And the student on the left is in a religion class studying Bhagavad Gita. This is the professor. These are all devotees, by the way. This is the biology professor explaining how life comes from matter. A combination of material elements and gases and fluids. And finally, the primordial soup is produced, and that produces life. The Prabhupada challenges time and time again. You're claiming that life comes from matter, but you can't prove it. You can't do it. You cannot create life from matter. This is just a theory. It's not a fact. In fact, it's mathematically proved to be impossible. Especially today when we know more more and more about the depths of the atomic structure and so forth, the tiny, tiny particles. So the biology student in this class is thinking about what his friend is telling him about the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, how life comes from life. So one scene in the film, we try to find life by going through all the material elements. We look at the bones, the muscle structure, the blood system, circulatory system, all the way down to the atom, and we cannot find where is life. Another scene in the film, we show hands, the aging process, changing bodies. We just show hands throughout life. And finally, death. Another scene in the film is on an operating table. This was actually my apartment, all set up to be an operating theater. These are all devotee doctors, not doctors, devotees playing as doctors. There's a nurse who directed this film. She's actually a qualified nurse in the operating room. So they're trying to bring the dead body back to life. The person dies on the operating table. They try all sorts of means to do that, with shock treatments, with injections, with pumping the heart. But there's nothing they can do to bring the body alive again. Once the soul has left, there's nothing you can do to bring life back. And then there's a scene in the graveyard. The relatives are mourning the passing of a loved one. The prophet explains that all of it, once the soul has left, all the material ingredients are there. So what is life? What is it? Is it the material ingredients? No. It's the soul. And then the priest is putting the dirt in the graveyard. And finally, the biology student realizes that actually life comes from life. And it's a happy ending. Srila Prabhupada ki. This is the end of our slideshow. Do you have any questions or comments?
You did a wonderful job considering the technology, the limited technology that we have.
Yeah, thank you. Huh? You want to see one of the movies? Which movie?
Nobody is asking, are there more photographs or you can put the light on?
You can put the light. Yeah, there's no more photographs. But one thing, this is a film restoration project we're doing. And we're very fortunate to have collected all the funds. We're not raising funds. But so many devotees have supported this. Radhanath Swami, Jatapata Maharaj, Satyananda Swami, Gopal Krishna Maharaj. Thank you.
sa ano. Yes.